what are your overall thoughts right now on like the whole Tekken 7 versus Tekken 8
Game.
thing?
I think it's pretty fair to say that Tekken 8 Season 1 is not the better
Sure,
competitive game.
sure.
But neither was I'm kind of against like homogenization and standardization, even though there are a lot of merits to making things more beginner friendly.
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of nuance in Tekken that makes it really cool. And I was disappointed that Tekken 8 did a lot of let's streamline everything. Let's make it very similar. Let's take out a lot of the jump over stuff, the cool Okazemi, things like that. So a lot of people think that I'm just a Tekken 8 glazer. That's not entirely the case.
Just like, how did you first like get to know or like meet the offline TV people? How did that happen? Which do you think is like overall the harder fighting game between
I
Melee
think
and
Melee's
Tekken?
harder.
Oh,
I think
damn.
Melee's harder. Even me, like an NA player in God of Destruction, it's pretty naive of me to think I have my character figured out. It's time to ask for buffs. Like buffs need to be very, very careful. And we alluded to it in the beginning, but when it comes to season 2, that's what I'm the most scared of. Stuff because he was underrepresented and because people weren't performing with him, they buffed him to the point that I could beat Arsenal Nash with him. So like that's
Welcome to the second episode of my brand new show, the FGCast, where I interview some of the most predominant figures in the FGC. In this episode, I chatted with PhiDX, one of the biggest Tekken YouTubers and streamers, who specializes in making analytical and educational content fun and entertaining to watch. PhiDX was amazing to talk to, and our conversation went to a lot of really cool places. To support this series, please consider subscribing to the channel and let me know who you want to see in the next episode. And without further ado, PhiDX, the man himself.
hello.
I had a feeling as soon as I did the main man episode, everyone was going to be like, we need to get PhiDX on. Yeah, you were like by far the most requested person. I'm sure people have asked you about it. How's it going, man? It's awesome to finally get to chat with you.
It's good. It's been a bit busy with the Korea versus Pakistan tournament, so my schedule's a bit flipped. But aside from that, I'm happy to be doing what I'm doing. So, and it's cool to be on here.
Yeah, you recently took a Tekken break, right? Like you took.
Yeah.
How long did you take off?
It was 5 days. Honestly, I don't think it was enough. I think when I take a break or like a cleanse, I think of it like how weightlifters will take like a deload week.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I was also watching the game a lot. And I think that a full deload, at least to my benefit, sometimes involves like not thinking about Tekken at all for a week. Usually before tournaments, that's what I'll do. And then I need like 1 to 3 days to get really back up to speed because my punishes will suck, my combos will be ass, like all of those things fall off with a break. But I think especially if I've been training really hard, the cleanse helps a lot.
So would you like recommend that to like the average Tekken player? Like take some time off I think for gym they say like like every 10 to 12 weeks, every like 3 months, it's good to take like a deload week. Would you say like around that would probably be good for most people? Have you I guess we could start with like, have you gained a lot from it, do you think?
Oh yeah. I think now it's definitely contingent upon doing a lot of good practice first.
Sure.
I think that if you just take a break every time you're frustrated, you might just stagnate, which is still a valid thing to do. But I think that in my case, I'm trying to play a lot more aggressively to match the Tekken 8 style because my style is so heavily shaped by how Tekken 7 was. And I play very passively and like high coverage and non-interactive just by the meta of that game. So to force myself to do something else, I'm literally going in and just hitting buttons. And like eventually, because I've been doing that nonstop and it's very uncomfortable, I'm like flow charting a lot, I'm making dumb decisions. So that's why I decided to take the break in the first place. So I think for people taking a break, it's usually when you're doing a lot of training, you're doing a lot of labbing, but in game there's a bit of like either burnout or fatigue, or you're making the same decisions over and over. That's a good cue. That's like, okay, maybe it's time for a break. For me, it was like I was also booting up Steve doing combos and I wasn't smiling. And I was like, okay, this is a good cue that I should probably take some time off.
Yeah, it's so interesting that now more people are starting to think about that. Like, rather than just like throwing your head, like bashing your skull against it, trying to improve all the time, there's like other little things you can do to make you like have a different perspective. Like, obviously, taking a break seems like a really good idea. I think Man mentioned that like he completely switched and like he only played on like player 1 for like a month, and like he tried like only using like certain attacks. It seems like doing stuff like that can really help you break through like plateaus where like you're stuck. Because in my experience, I'm sure you feel similarly, the worst thing in fighting games is like the when you start flowcharting and you start playing autopilot, right? Like I feel like we all have that thing where we just bad habits, terrible habits, and once you write them, it's really hard to get rid of them, I feel like.
Yeah, the player 2 thing was a really cool strategy too. I think a hard part for most of the people in the community I interact with is that if you switch to player 2, you're kind of going to tank rank, assuming you keep playing ranked, right? If you do quick match, which I think is really good now with the infinite rematch, then it's probably fine. It's also just a good thing in general to level up your player too. Like you never know when you'll show up offline and end up like, or you'll like meet up with one friend, and I think that work really helps in general. Um, yeah, I think that's a valid strategy. In my case specifically, I knew what I wanted to do with like coaching and like talking to friends. So I was pretty confident in the things I wanted to train. I didn't want to overtrain in like the wrong things. So
Mhm.
for that reason, I didn't do like the P2 strat, for example, or um, some kind of off training. Like I didn't play another character. I didn't play like a different Tekken. It was very much a time off thing to specifically work on being more aggressive in Tekken 8. But I think there's lots of merit to different strategies, especially depending on the person.
Huh. Okay, so I guess like yeah, you mentioned like you're struggling with how aggressive Tekken 8 is. What are your overall thoughts right now on like the whole Tekken 7 versus Tekken 8 thing? Because I know we're kind of in that period now where everyone's nostalgic for Tekken 7. Everywhere you go, it's like Tekken 7 was the better game. Oh, Tekken 8's too mashy. Like where do you how do you kind of feel about that whole thing?
I think it's a cyclical decision, cyclical conversation.
Mhm.
There's a famous quote I think from JDCR saying like Tag 2 has enabled lesser experienced players to win compared to Tekken 6.
Mhm.
Paraphrased, but I think that it's always a thing anytime a game comes out,
Sure.
and I honestly lacked that perspective at first because I played Tekken my whole life, but I didn't get into like competing and kind of the scene until Tekken 7. So when I saw the hate coming in and the nostalgia for Tekken 7, I was like, is this more than normal? Is this the same thing before? And talking to friends who've been around since Tekken 5DR, people who have played Street Fighter 4, 5, and 6, they're like, this happens every game, bro. Like, until there's a good DLC release or kind of a different game for people to jump to and then come back, there's always the last game was better debate every single game.
So I guess like how do you feel like going from Tekken 8 to 7? Like if you had to say, what do you think is the overall better competitive game, I guess? Like which
Better competitive game. I think it's pretty fair to say that Tekken 8 Season 1 is not the better
sure.
competitive game.
Sure.
But neither was any other first draft Tekken, if you want to put it that way, right? Like
Mhm.
we saw Tekken 7.0 had some insane stuff. Tekken 6.0, there's a guy who will bring a Tekken 6.0 setup to tournaments and you get to play on it and he'll show you like the touch of death combos and stuff, right? So I think that Tekken 8 Season 1, it was crazy to me. I get why they did it, but I think it was kind of crazy that they ran a TWT on it and kind of uh, had this weird stance on patching. It was such a. I feel like they put themselves in a horrible position where in a first draft game you have to make a lot of changes with a lot of people's feedback because there's some really broken stuff. But in a professional game, you want stable patches in order for them to build expertise. A lot of people say like they're pros, they can adjust, but honestly, if you don't want to see like lame layer 1 Tekken where it's the same OP moves over and over again, you need to give the pros a lot of time to get used to the counterplay, get used to the mindset, get used to how the matchups play out. So, I deviated a lot from your question, but I think the idea that Tekken 8 is the worst Tekken, I'm not sure about that yet because I want to see how they do season 2. I think it's fair to say it's not a strong competitive Tekken, especially for people whose livelihoods are on the line. There's a lot of volatility. I think first to 3 would have been great. But I also don't think it's the worst thing ever. I think Tekken has had a lot of egregious stuff, and they're always adjusting. And whether the adjustments are things we like or not is always up for debate too. But yeah, I think we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I think a lot of people like need to kind of realize like Tekken 8 is such a unique game in that like it changed everything. Like these are the biggest changes we've seen for so long. And when you make big changes like that to a legacy fighting game series like Tekken, it's not always going to be immediately seamless. Like there's going to be some rocky periods, and yeah, I think that's kind of what we've experienced in this first year. Obviously, everyone said it already, but there was no arcade release. They just kind of released it,
Yeah.
and so we're kind of like this has kind of been like the beta period, honestly.
Yeah,
So
and to be honest, I'm kind of an old head when it comes to a lot of the changes too. I was upset they didn't. I was upset they took out like chickens, like anti parries, right?
mm,
I was upset that they standardized all the parries to 5 frames. Like I'm kind of against like homogenization and standardization, even though there are a lot of merits to making things more beginner friendly.
mm.
I think there's a lot of nuance in Tekken that makes it really cool. And I was disappointed that Tekken 8 did a lot of let's streamline everything. Let's make it very similar. Let's take out a lot of the jump over stuff, the cool Okazemi, things like that. So a lot of people think that I'm just a Tekken 8 glazer. That's not entirely the case. I've been critical of the design direction kind of since late Tekken 7 into Tekken 8 about with like homogenization, removing a lot of depth. So yeah, I'm not I don't know what to expect for season 2. I expect improvements, but yeah, they've shown patterns before of good changes and bad changes, right? So I don't know what to think.
Yeah, so much is riding on season 2. Like we're all kind of in a point now where like we need this update. Obviously, the patches they have not been super numerous in the past year. It's been a look. I think it was like 7 months since our last like big major patch. It's been a while since we've gotten anything, and I feel like there's a lot riding on this. Like whether or not like the game lasts, and like a lot of people keep the casuals keep playing or not, because people have been very negative about the game, obviously. And I still think I have faith in it, but it's just they have to pull this one off, right?
Yeah, and I think it's often maybe I'm in my own bubble, but I think it's often overlooked how much things like the net code really do matter. Like people, if you're tapped into the Tekken community, you hear about balance, you hear about cheating, you hear about these, and those are all very valid. But in the like red rank and purple rank players I like talk to a lot, they'll be like, I'd be on Tekken, but I can't find a game because I set like 5-bar only and I can't find a 5-bar game. Or it'll be super experienced high level players who want to play the game, but every patch, their same training partners, the netcode deteriorates. And Lohai has tweeted that he used to get great connections with Japan. Every patch, it gets worse. I'm personally someone who believes that in the modern age of fighting games, or even games in general, where you can always jump to a game like Marvel Rivals, or I mean, I jump to Fortnite. I play Fortnite casually, right? I think netcode is everything. Just being able to play the game is a big deal. So I hope they invest into that aside from the game design changes as well.
It's so crazy when it comes to like netcode and just like the overall online experience. It kind of feels like Namco is like just behind everyone else. I don't know, it's really weird. Like there's so many things that we're just randomly missing. Obviously the plugging issue. We've had so many things with that. You didn't lose points for plugging for like, I think they fixed that recently, right? But what, like 12 months it took them to fix that? Like even like little dumb things like you can't search for lobbies for some reason. I don't even like, it's been standard for what, 20 years? You have a multiplayer game, you want to make a lobby with your friends, you search it. I don't know, it's just they're weirdly behind the times. It kind of reminds me of Nintendo. Like, you know how they're always like known for being super behind? Obviously not to the same extent. Oh my god, talk about how awful Smash Ultimate's online experience is all day. But like, yeah, it's so weird because like you said, for fighting games, you need online is huge. Like as huge as all these other big games, right? Most people are not going to tournaments. The vast majority of the community plays at home online. So you'd think they'd put a ton of priority into making sure it's as like seamless of an experience as possible. It's just, yeah, it's really odd.
I think part of the hard part too is, and this is total speculation, is from what I know about Japanese companies, they have their own way of doing things.
Yeah.
So I think that probably lends credence to the idea that they like to develop things in-house, right? And again, I'm not super up to date. It could be the case. I know that fighting game devs do share things with each other, like Street Fighter getting the replay takeover from Tekken, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like netcode implementation and ranked implementation, it feels like there's this need to do it on your own, and that feels odd to me. But yeah, the netcode is so important. I know many Tekken players who talk about wanting to go to Street Fighter. I say many. It's like my circle of friends. They talk about wanting to go to Street Fighter just because they can find games and the netcode is smooth. So I'm like, there is definitely a set of people who, yeah, the balance is frustrating, but ultimately they just want to play the game, and whichever game gives them the most playability instead of waiting around, getting plugged on, getting cheated, laggy connections when you do get in the game. I feel like I keep harping on it, but being able to play is a big deal.
Yeah. So I guess like, yeah, on the topic of like the netcode and like season 2 and all that stuff, I know you had like a whole video going through like all the stuff you want in season 2. It was really great. You guys should check it out. But what are you like overall, like if you had to pick, like what are you most excited for in season 2? Like,
most excited for. I think there's a trend that they're going to remove string tracking. We saw it a little teased a bit with like Dragunov back 4-3. I want to see that across the board, like Elisa forward 2-1, especially the heat engage strings, but strings in general. Like, I think when Tekken 8 first came out, they really wanted to make strings really powerful, right? So a good example is Jin back forward 2-3, like that laser scraper into the kick. That sequence used to have different counterplay, right? So he has the high that you can duck, or the kick that's a mid, and he can go into stance. But in Tekken 7, you could 13 frame interrupt the stance if he went into the kick.
Oh wow.
Every time. In Tekken 8, that's not really a thing anymore. That's super viable. He has like the power crush. Sometimes his Zen up 1 will evade stuff. So in general, that's one example, but they tend to have wanted to make string mix-ups kind of real and to give people ways of attacking using their buttons and their strings.
Mm.
And I'm happy to see that slowly we're seeing movement in the other direction of that. Azucena got her strings nerfed a bit, right? Like some of them can go into back turn stance, but the frames are way worse. I like that they tried it, and it feels like they're kind of rolling it back. So in terms of excitement, it's that they've shown little hints of these good changes. They've shown some hints of some horrifying changes too.
Yeah.
But small things like that give me a lot of hope that sidestepping will continue to improve. Hopefully they fix a lot of the bugs with the weird sidesteps, aside from like the Hurtbox expansion stuff. Yeah, I think I have loose faith in that.
On this topic of like the whole sidestepping thing, how do you feel about everyone just being like, oh, sidesteps are horrible? Because like theoretically, like sidesteps are so buffed compared to Tekken 8, right? But and I guess it is mostly the casual community who I see talking about this, but I'm sure there are some pros who have said the same. But like, do you feel like sidestepping is actually like worse in this game overall, or are people just bad at sidestepping, or yeah, what's going on there?
No, I don't think sidestepping is worse in this game. I think sidestepping is way better in this game, and I've thought that since the beta, when I was able to walk a Kazuya electric with a like 30% confidence on my sidewalk. I just kind of did it, and I was out of there. And I was like, whoa. In Tekken 7, if you wanted to sidewalk an electric, you had to be really on point. It got to the point that when I was fighting a Kazuya, I would rather just block. I didn't even want to risk being a quarter frame off my timing and then getting launched, right? So in this game, 100%. Now, the trade-off, and I think the reason people are seeing a lot of frustration, is characters have been given a lot of moves to answer sidestepping, right? Lily has like 3+4, a range 4 homing high advancing move, right? Every character has like a running move now, and if you delay it a little bit, it realigns, right? But I put out that sidestepping video for a reason, because since I asked people, is sidestepping better or worse? To this day, I still get pinged. PhiDX, explain this one. And I think it's half a meme. But there's also people who just don't understand how the system works. And to be fair, I think Tekken, especially late Tekken 7, Tekken 8, has done a really bad job of making things visually clear why they're working or not.
Yeah.
This is, again, one of my critiques of Tekken, modern Tekken 7, Tekken 8, is it used to be pretty intuitive if something seems steppable, if a string seems unsafe, if this looks high versus this looks mid. But like, what is Lee's back 3+4? That move looks like a mid to me. It looks like a mid or to like everybody, so nobody was ducking it. And we found out it was a high. We're like, okay, we have to train ourselves to do that. Again, old head take. In old Tekkens, I thought it was pretty visibly clear if something was a mid or a high, with obvious exceptions. So I feel like in general, especially, so you were asking about sidestepping, there's also been a lot of lack of clarity in like, why did I get hit by this move? It's a swiping mids are usually tracking, like straight moves usually linear, and now because they can't really decide whether they want movement to be good or bad, you have moves given tracking arbitrarily, and we're dealing with the consequences of that. Brian 3+4, you step it to the left, it's coded to track you that way, even though visibly it's a linear kick. So I think we're feeling the after effects of modern Tekken design from before, where they couldn't decide, do we want movement to be good or bad?
It's so interesting that you mentioned like, yeah, like the clarity of the animations, because this is something I was talking about on my stream a couple days ago. Like, it is so hard. And people said this in Tekken 7 as well, but like in Tekken 7, it was like the mid high. Like knowing whether a move is mid, there is on tons of moves, there is zero visual thing on a move if it's mid or high. There's plenty of mids look like highs, plenty of highs look like mids. There's no way. And yeah, like you said, they now with strings and like some moves just track. And it kind of makes me wonder, like, what's the point of having like the homing property when they don't use it half the, like, I know plenty of moves that track to both directions pretty much fully, but they don't have the homing effect. It's just, yeah, it's so odd. Do you think, would you be in favor of them, like, first of all, for like, because this was an idea I always had, what if for like high mids they had like a different particle effect, like maybe like a different color on your block if it was a high or a mid? Like, do you think that could be good for the overall game?
That's a great question. I am an I keep saying I have an old head take. My preference for games in general, especially in older Tekkens, is giving players ways to improve themselves in terms of like perception speed and reflexes. And as much so I want to draw a line here. I don't believe in excluding things for like accessibility. So like if people have like legitimate disabilities or a need to have cues that way, I support that 100%. And I don't feel qualified to comment on that side of it. But one thing, so no, I don't think I would like different particle colors. And in addition to that, I have that take about other things that have helped. Like for me, the low parry zoom in, I have mixed feelings about, because for one, it's really hype for the spectator, and it's like, oh, get low parried, but it freezes it. It lets you kind of register, oh, I'm getting a combo opportunity.
Yeah.
Same thing with counter hit zoom in, right? I think there was a cool, there were a few cool things about when you counter hit somebody with Steve's back one in Tekken Tag 2. There's no zoom in. The hit spark is a little louder, but your opponent just drops. And if you're watching like a real fight, it's kind of closer to that, instead of like, look, you got a counter hit, it's combo time. You know, people have asked like, do you think Tekken should have a counter notification like in anime games? And I actually think, based on what I've been saying, no. I like the idea that with training, with recognition, you can improve your speed, improve your ability to counter hit confirm by training. And for that reason, I like that there are these kind of skill checks. Now, for Tekken 8 specifically, you asked about mid-high particle effects. I think they just need to make it sound so simple. They just need to revisit kind of what they did in the older Tekkens. In the older Tekkens, it felt like moves were designed with their properties and animations kind of together. It was a mid move, it looked mid, it behaved like a mid, it had certain tracking. Law's back 4, it's a spinning kick, right? So it goes sideways, it looks middle, it's homing. All of those things felt like designed very together. Nowadays, it feels like they have like a vague move idea and then justify it with the properties after. A good example is like a lot of Reina's animations. You could tell they wanted to represent like Taido and do a lot of those animations. So they coded those and animated those, and then said, okay, now we need to make a Tekken character. Which one's mid? Which one's high? I guess this is a mid. I guess this is a high. I feel like the unity of designing the animation with the properties really closely would go a long way. And it could just be a consequence of modern gaming too, where it's so much harder to develop these things. You're using generic engines, you're on different deadlines and budgets and things like that. And again, that's not me glazing for Namco or anything like that. It's just, it's clear that they used to do these things, now they don't. We can speculate as to why, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I get what you mean, right? It makes so much sense. You should be able to tell, yeah, like exactly what you said. If a move spins, you can assume it's like a mid, maybe like a tracking move, like a swipe. If it's a high, it should look like a high. It should be hitting your head, ideally. I don't know why some highs, it's like they hit you in the crotch. It's like, what's going on? Like, how would anyone know?
The bear like sits and jumps and it's a mid.
It's like, yeah, what's going on?
Yeah.
So, and well, to be clear, I feel like there's no chance they'll ever actually do this. Like, it's unfortunate, but like with how many moves each character has now, and of course they're adding more and more. In season 2, each character is getting new moves, possibly multiple new moves on each character. Like, just there's too much at this point. I could see maybe like years down the road, maybe if they did like a reboot, like maybe did like a Mortal Kombat reboot, they could like hone in on like the specifics of the characters, cut moves, cut down the move list, and maybe try and make it more obviously like intuitive. But yeah, and unfortunately I can't.
I think
see
it'd be a
happening.
Tekken 10 thing. Yeah.
It's, I don't know.
I will say.
Sorry,
go ahead.
No, you can go ahead.
I will say that one change along the particle discussion that I'm personally carried by, but also disagree with, is the counter hit spark. I benefit from that a lot because I suck at counter hit confirms. But when I'm doing like Lily 113 or Steve 121, seeing the counter hit spark helps me with my decision making.
Sure.
But Tekken players before, like the OGs, the pros, not me, they could see that their opponent was mid swing, right? Or not every time, of course, but there were a lot of situations where you could visually confirm your opponent twitching if you're paying close attention. And that's what I'm talking about when I mean like speeding up and gaining training. Is like Tekken has this thing that I think Street Fighter and maybe anime fighters don't have. I'm not fully qualified to talk about it, but our startup frames are generally slower. Like our jab is like 10 frames versus like Street Fighter being like 4 frames. So we move in a 3D space. So there's time to see a character transitioning through that animation and kind of recognize that, oh, I interrupted him in the middle of his swing. Obviously with jabs it's harder, but with the other slower moves, I think it's more of a thing. So it's not a fully fleshed out theory yet, but I think Tekken benefits a lot from those kinds of things, the 3D animation, 3D space, that I like the idea of keeping it hard where possible. The counter hit spark is a good compromise though, and it helps me on Twitter when people ask why sidesteps don't work. So
Yeah. It's unfortunate. And there's not really any solution to it. Could you see them like for the back to the, like the tracking thing? Could you see them in the future like just adding like more homing trails to more moves? Like in the like what if they could you see them going back and looking at some moves and being like, okay, this has a homing trail. Possibly even like what if it was like they did like a half homing trail for like to like a homing trail to the left for moves that track to the left to the right? Or would that go along with the thing that you think it's like you want the skill checks, you want to be able to figure that out yourself?
it's a bit of both. When I imagine a homing trail from one direction, I don't know if I'd be able to even visually recognize that.
Sure, yeah.
I would still end up trying to remember by the moves animation which way it tracked.
Mhm.
Um, Remind me the first part of your question.
Just like in general, like could you see them going back and like Brian's 3+4, or moves like that that have super tracking but don't have homing trails? Do you think they'd ever like add them, or do they want to keep fully homing moves and pseudo homing moves separate?
I think they want to keep it separate, and I think the rationale used to be very clear. A homing move introduced in, I believe, Tekken 6 was traditionally mid, gave up your turn, and pretty slow. Exceptions being like Lars back one that was really fast. I was just playing Tekken 6. I was spamming that. But if you think of like Lars back 3, right? It was it's still a big mid homing kick, gives up your turn because you're making a call out on your opponent's sidewalking, and then if you're wrong, it's done. That's the balance point, right? Lily's forward 3 is the same way. Tons of characters' moves who are homing are kind of built around that. Dragonov down 2 tracks both ways, no homing trail, and it doesn't give advantage on hit anymore, like with force crouch and 0. But it's a pseudo homing, right?
Yeah.
I think there should be a clear design difference between those moves. If we treat homing moves similar, where you like somebody has a homing move, what do I do? You say, oh, it gives up your turn. It's a mid usually, like you get your mix up after. I like that segmentation because then you can just tell somebody this is how you handle homing moves.
Yeah.
So with the pseudo homing moves, one thing I've seen that I think would benefit people is people have talked about putting the tracking in the move list, and as there's a complication with that where there's exceptions and it depends on the frames, but I'm loosely in favor of that because I think it keeps the whole in-game quick recognition, clean UI, smooth animation thing pretty good, while also giving people the resources they need to learn if they want to study. And I'm in favor of that. I'm in favor of more training tools in general. So that is a compromise, I think, if I had the power to make the decision. I would say, like, let's consider putting, like, oh, this tends to track left in most situations in the practice mode move list.
Dude, I dream. We've come a long way since like the paying for frame data in Tekken 7, but even still, like it's considering like how like knowledgey, like you need the knowledge in Tekken. It's so important. There's still like a huge lack of training options. Like, yeah, I don't see what. I mean, it'd be a lot of work for the developers, but like, yeah, in theory, there could be like a little blurb underneath the moves. Yeah, this one you usually want to step to the left. This one has a little bit of tracking to the right. Like stuff like that could be a big help. Even like frames, like maybe like right next to the move, if it just said like, what is it minus on block, that'd be like a huge thing rather than having to go through each one and test it out. I feel like little quality of life features like that would be really cool. I don't know if Namco would think it's kind of worth it, because if we're being honest, the majority of the Tekken community, are they even looking at frame data? Are they going and
trying looking at the move list?
Are they sidestepping? Do they give a shit about any of this? Like, I don't know, probably not.
There are people I've coached who they'll see a move and I'll be like, do this move. They're like, oh yeah, the move's good. I should look at the move list. I'm like, yeah. And to be fair, I'm guilty of that too. I'm not as diligent of a labber as many people I know. I don't look at the move list as much. I don't lab my 10-hit combos. So I feel that. I also think that Namco has this very deeply rooted arcade legacy history where in that time when you designed a game, you needed it to extend its like replayability. So you hide information to make people discover it and have fun discovering it. That age is long gone. We don't have cheat code books anymore, right? You just look up online anything. Content is fed to you, teaching you whether you were looking for it or not. So the scene has heavily changed. And I think just like we're feeling the effects of their attempts to remove movement and then kind of bring it back with like the lack of clarity of homing and tracking, things like that, we're also feeling the effects of the old arcade like early PS1, PS2 game design ideas that are still leaking into today. So I think it's a consequence of that. I'm sure if there were a new team overhaul, like a brand new team heads Tekken, they do a reboot or something like that, I have a hunch these considerations would be made based on how like Street Fighter has been doing it with Street Fighter 6. From what I understand, Street Fighter 6 has a new like head, new team and everything. And you can tell by the design choices they're making that they're thinking about a lot of these tiny things.
Sure. Huh. All right. Well, just to kind of get off the Tekken 8 specifics, we'll come back to it later. I got lots of stuff written down, but I wanted to ask you. So, obviously, in the past year since Tekken 8's release, you've blown up a lot, right? Like, yeah, it's been so awesome seeing you like kind of grow to the size that you are today. I guess just like what's that been like seeing all the growth like throughout Tekken 8's life? Like, how's it been?
It's been crazy. I feel like I never really got a chance to sit down and like zoom out and look at it
Mm,
very in like a with a bird's eye view. It was like from the moment um, Tekken 8 was about to drop, I was thinking about and scripting the beginner guide. I was trying to figure out what is the best way to get people into the game because there's like you said, it's a heavy knowledge game. There's so much
mm,
nonsense. There's so much there's so many distractions. What is like the meat and bones that will get people going? Where are the common things that people get stuck on, like how to wake up off the ground? And how can we teach people to not only learn to play, but also like appreciate the things they see when they watch pro play. I
mm,
think Tekken has the benefit of being one of the most watchable games, and getting people up to speed on why it's so cool, I think helps a lot. So when I reflect on this year of content, it's only been very recent. I think that in the moment I was thinking of the beginner guide, and then immediately after it was like, what are these common issues? I thought of Eris in early Tekken 7. He was like a heavy inspiration for how I wanted to do my channel. Like go on stream, answer people's questions, demonstrate them, turn those into videos. And
mm,
as people are just hunting for more information, everybody's learning together really fast. And I thought that that would bring people back to the stream, to the YouTube, is if they thought they could trust me for information, if they thought it was entertaining,
mm.
and striking that balance between this long form style of casual conversation, but also trying to keep it really focused because it's so easy to click away from video nowadays, you know? So that was the biggest challenge. And I guess the whole year I've been really just optimizing that. In addition to trying to figure out how to even compete in the game because the game is so different. I feel like I was so focused on those things. I didn't really get to zoom out and be like, how does this feel like? What does this feel like? I was just like, next task, next task.
Just all moving so fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, do you still like overall have an interest in competing in Tekken 8, or are you going to go more focused on content?
I'm a competitor at heart.
Mm,
So it is the hardest thing to choose not to compete and make content. It is the hardest thing to um, lose in a competition and feel like I didn't spend my time properly.
mm,
Right? I just played in TNS yesterday, and I don't want to call it any opponents or anything like that, but I'm losing to opponents where I feel like if I had cleaner punishment, if I had cleaner defense, I would not lose to a lot of the stuff I was, getting blown up by.
mm.
I felt like they were killing me for my lack of cleanliness. And it's reasonable that I wasn't able to practice because I was restreaming the Pakistan versus Korea, right? And I made that choice. Um, it feels really bad to lose like that. So I'm definitely a competitor at heart. I would love to optimize my content game to be able to compete more, but it's an ongoing decision and struggle for sure where I really, really want to compete. It's hard without knowing which character I want to play. I really like, and I enjoy doing content too. I enjoy commentating tournaments and things like that. So constant struggle. I have no clear answer where I'll go, but it's something I'm definitely a competitor at heart.
I think it's also really hard for people like you in the fighting game community who do content and competing, like trying to like, yeah, like you said, like how you spend your time, right? Managing your time, because again, I've said this last time, but it's competing is rough in any fighting game. Like this
Yeah.
isn't Dota, this isn't League of Legends. The
No.
reward, the payouts is nothing like it is there. And the amount of time it takes you to like be at the highest level, it's unbelievable how much time these people are putting in. And I guess like I can imagine it must be like a struggle. Like, do I spend a ton of time practicing because it's like super fulfilling, but then like I'm not going to make nearly as much doing content creation because they pay pennies now, especially in Tekken. Like, am I
Yeah.
like it must be like really difficult, but I don't know. It's cool that you're still interested in competing overall, and I like that like that is at heart where your passion is, right? I think
Yeah.
that's really cool. When did you get into Tekken first?
So Tekken's been a part of my life forever. I remember playing Tekken 3 when I was like 4, playing with like my
Mm,
dad and stuff. But there's pictures of me playing like Tekken 2 with my cousin. I was not like a human being, so like I don't remember any of it. But
Yeah.
I had a controller in my hand. Apparently, we were playing. Um, I didn't learn frames and stuff until Tekken Tag 2, and I was super into. Well, I say super into it. I was a pretty casual player, but I was following like tournaments. So I loved watching Eris and Markman commentate. I love watching Rip. I watched Rip and MYK's Morning Bread and Butter series to learn how to play my characters. I was learning frame data, I was learning punishes. So that's where it kind of started, playing as like a sweatier fighting game player.
Mhm.
But I couldn't go to tournaments when I was that age. So I was just playing online and watching uh, the big like Evo, like the big tournaments. I wasn't the next level of sweat, in my opinion, where I was like looking for arcade VODs from Korea, which would have definitely been the move. I was like a try hard casual
Okay.
in that sense. Um, and then I got into League of Legends,
Oh
and I
no.
didn't touch Tekken until Tekken 7. Even when like I played Tekken 7 a bit. I played Law, and then Noctis came out. I liked him a lot. Played him a bit, but I was still definitely a League of Legends and a Melee player.
Hmm.
So I was into those nonstop. It wasn't until I started working as a software engineer, and I would finish my day. I would get home at like 6. If I wanted to play League, I could play 1 or 2 games, and then I had to go to bed. I'm like, I'm not getting better this way. That's when I switched to Tekken 7, and I happened to start going to offlines in 2019. And then at that point, I was like full Tekken 7. Once I realized that was the game I could grind competition in, because competitor heart.
When you were like at that level in Tekken 7, like yeah, super invested in tournaments. Obviously, you had the infamous CEO run that was crazy. How much time would you say you were like spending like practicing like every day, or like VOD reviewing? I guess like was that like the majority of what you were doing every day, or was it still kind of like on the side more so? Or
I'm trying to think back. What I distinctly remember, because it was during COVID, right? So
Hmm.
I distinctly remember um, they were running so many weeklies that my goal was to enter a weekly every day. I felt that my biggest weakness was, well, I had a lot of weaknesses, but my biggest weakness was definitely like tournament composure.
Hmm.
And there are tons of clips of me in that era, even on my stream now, of like choking when I'm in a winning position. So my approach at the time was just throwing my head at it and just entering every tournament as much as possible, being nervous as much as possible, and then just trying to get in there. Tournaments are also the easiest way for me personally to practice. I think that, again, compared to my friends, I'm not as diligent of a labber. I don't do enough practice mode. Um, Tournaments were the best way for me to rack up experience in the most fun way possible. Um, I was in Discords doing like sending like VOD reviews and getting help during that COVID era is where I started like talking to Speed Kicks, and we were like doing a lot of back and forth with that. So um, definitely that was a factor, but I think that I credit most of my improvement to just grinding tournaments, kind of like the Joe Crush approach, you know.
Huh. And these were online tournaments, right?
They were all online, yeah.
It's still so like mind blowing to me for like online tournaments, because again I started with Smash Ultimate competitively before I came to Tekken,
Yeah.
like back in
Yeah.
2018, and that doesn't have a functional online on. Yeah, good luck, native
Yeah,
four
yeah.
frames of delay online. Oh my god.
Right.
It's cool that now I know in Street Fighter there's a ton of are there like a lot of Tekken online tournaments like happening all the time still, or is it because I imagine Street Fighter has the most, right, because of how good the netcode is.
I think so. TNS is definitely the biggest one, at least in North America, right? Like, they run every week. I
Mhm.
know there are smaller weeklies. There's the like Paragon ladder format, I think on Thursdays. That one's pretty good too. Um, it's not what it used to be for sure. Just like when all we had was online because of the lockdowns, and it was literally like not just the like so level up your game was doing it. Bud Light was sponsoring some of them, but then also individual like small discords were running like weekly tournaments that ended up getting bigger and bigger. So it's nowhere near what it used to be. I imagine Street Fighter has more, but there might just be other Tekken ones I'm not aware of. I don't get to enter as many these days, so TNS is my main one.
Do you ever go to offline locals, or is it mostly just online for you?
Very rarely. I want to go so much more. I'm a big like I'm a big I say support your locals and then I don't go, but
Mm.
I genuinely believe in the value of them a lot. I think especially for people who feel like there's a lot of people who say like I want to get this rank and then I want to go to locals. I think it should be the other way around. You go to locals
Yeah.
first and everything gets so much better immediately. Fighting games I think have an inherent social factor that the online uh interacting with online is not sustainable when
Mm.
it comes to fighting games. So I think like whether it's a physical local, whether it's a small Discord community where everybody's like taking it a similar level of seriousness,
Mm.
those two dynamics I think are really crucial to staying engaged in, at least in Tekken 8. I'm sure in fighting games in general, but Tekken 8 specifically, where there's so many frustration points and things like that, I think it's so important.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that because I'm also a big like, yeah, you support your locals. It's such a good like resource to have. And obviously if you have it, a lot of people are in different places around the world. You don't some people don't have locals near them. But like if you
Yeah.
do, like I can't recommend going to them enough. Like the amount even if you're just a casual player, like it's really fun. You connect with your community, you can make tons of friends. And yeah, if you're actually like interested in improving, I cannot like I cannot overstate how helpful it is to like be sitting next to someone when you're playing them. It
Yeah.
makes learning matchups and learning all this knowledge stuff way more fun, first of all, but way more efficient too. Oh, what did that? You can literally ask the person you're playing friendlies. How do I beat that? Do I
Yeah.
step that to this way? I duck that string. It's so helpful. And yeah, obviously, a sense of community. You can see yourself and your peers improve. It's really good. Like don't just like sit there all day on rank, just like smacking your head into it, trying to. You should definitely go to locals if you're able to, and yeah, support your local
And
scene.
I think a big there are two big things I think that locals really offer. It's the small stuff that you don't really think about until you go to a tournament. Small things like I plug in my controller. Do I hit the PS button? How do I select a profile? Like remembering your button binds. All those tiny things
Mm.
actually end up kind of mattering when you go to a major because energy preservation is such a big deal. Focusing on your game plan is such a big deal. Even tiny things like that, you'd be surprised how it can make people nervous when they don't know how to set up their profile or they mess up their controls.
Mm.
Um, and then yeah, even like sitting next to someone like Arslan Ash, he'll be like, "How minus is that? What's the punish? Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay." And then he beats my ass because now he knows the punish. But like, then both of you are getting better. And even if you're asking a high level player for games,
Mm.
you would be surprised how few high level players are actually like, "Don't talk to me." I can't name an experience where I asked a high level player for games and they said no, even
Yeah.
when I was really like tiny and I was learning, right?
Mm.
So I think that the real like again, there are a few exceptions, and I've heard stories of people with horrible locals experiences, but the vast majority of locals, the high level players remember what it's like to be learning. The low level players are there to have fun. Everybody's there to play the game.
Mm.
So it's worth going and asking and experiencing that. And the nerves are crazy. I go to a local where I don't know any of the players. I feel like I should be the one winning. I get super nervous. And I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, this is something you only feel offline. And then it makes ranked feel so much easier. It makes the online pressure really go down when you are locals regular because you know what the most intense pressure can feel like. You show up on the Evo stage, it's easier than if you had only played online. So all that stuff really matters a lot. I think it's super important.
I think it would also help for the like just improving as a community. I know people have been talking, what is it, the NA versus EU thing going on right
Yeah.
now, and like all the other regions. But like, I don't know. I feel like if more people in NA, I feel like NA people don't go to locals as much generally as other regions. Like it's mostly
Yeah.
just like online, like player matches, ranked. But yeah, it's like if you want to improve as a community, as a region, yeah, go to your locals. We can all improve together. It's we shouldn't be fighting amongst ourselves all the time. Like the whole ego thing is pretty big in North America, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting topic too. I don't have a lot of direct experience with it, but from the conversations I've had, there is this NA element of hiding your tech, hiding your information,
Yeah.
hiding your habits, right? NA in general is a very cerebral region in that sense, where uh, I don't know what the factor is that leads to it, but
Mm.
in so many games, we're the ones coming up with the weird builds, we're the ones coming up with the cheese strategies, the setups, right?
Mhm.
um that's the way we tend to play games, versus say like Korea where they optimize mechanics and like the fighting skill over and over and over again. They might do bad combos, they might do suboptimal punishes, not always, but they're refining, whereas we are innovating and like creating. I think that for NA to continue advancing, yeah, our top players do have to share their tech, get exposed by each other, so that when they get to the international stage, they have that extra layer of skill development on top of that, right?
Yeah, it's so interesting. It might just be NA as a whole because I remember people would talk about that, like in chess too. Like North America was always super like isolated. Oh yeah, I don't want anyone to know my secrets. And then was like Russia on this. I'm referencing the Queen's Gambit when I say this.
Yeah,
I know
yeah,
if it's true, but like yeah, they're all helping each other out. It seems like
yeah,
that
yeah.
just kind of follows into into all the other aspects.
It seems to. It seems to. I'm not educated enough on the history of esports and everything, but that's the trend I loosely see from like League of Legends to Tekken, things like that.
Okay, so you said you played Tekken pretty much all your life. It's always been a part of your life, but Tekken 7 was when you really like sat down and started saying, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to compete. I'm really into it, right? So I'm guessing, was it around then that you started making content, or were you making content before, or when did that whole thing start?
So the idea of being a content creator and a streamer has always been like a loose interest,
Mm.
but I hadn't taken the steps to seriously do it. And even when I started playing Tekken 7, I don't think I was taking it seriously enough. I was still very much a competitor. I honestly turned on streams because I didn't want people to think I was cheating. So I turned on streams and I had a hand cam because I was like, I was doing decently at my locals. I thought I could play online and probably win.
Mm.
And even if I couldn't win right away, I thought I could train to that point. And so I genuinely was just like, well, let me show a hand cam so people don't think I'm like showing up out of nowhere because I'm cheating.
Mm.
And that's how it started. And I just streamed a lot. And my game plan was make top 8s in these onlines so the commentators will talk about me. And then my stream will pick up more.
Mm.
I don't think that was the best strategy. I think YouTube and like creating videos is huge and providing value that way.
Mm.
But at the time, I didn't believe in like my personality or my ability to deliver information. I only believed in being a competitor to gain attention that way. So I was very narrow-minded and unoptimized in my approach for sure. It started evolving as I did more research on streaming, but I think I was so competition pilled in Tekken 7 that I was not doing what I needed to do to blow up at that time.
Mm. And so then now you've realized obviously it's more like the educational content that people are like really into. That's kind of like what you pivoted towards.
There was a time in Tekken 7 where I tried copying education content I've seen before. So in League, I watched LS do a lot of coaching videos, and it was a different meta back then, but he literally just straight up uploaded full VODs of coaching unedited, and he popped off that way, right? Totally different scene. You can't really do that anymore, but I think that that was the template I tried to follow. Didn't work super well for me. I tried making this series called like 1-minute matchups where I could give you quick strategies against characters in like a minute, right? The idea was to turn it into shorts eventually, but I was discouraged by how few people were engaging with that kind of content. And I had conversations. There's like a tweet thread I had with Speed Kicks back then before we were talking regularly. He was like, I noticed in the transition from Tag 2 to Tekken 7, people are less like hunting and chasing for educational content. People are looking for entertainment with Tekken as the venue or Tekken as the subject of discussion. Tekken as like the sport that we're going to debate about, right? So it became, at that point is when I again kind of just started focusing on competition again. I got discouraged on trying to teach, trying to educate, and just went back to playing and then doing a video every now and then. So I didn't really find my flow until the Evo showcase for Tekken 8, which was the last year of Tekken 7. I did a Gotham chess style like match review of what happened,
Mm-hmm.
and that was when we kind of felt like, oh, there's something here. We can repeat that for tons of matches. We can do that for my own matches, and that's where I found, I think, the flow to do what I do now, which is like a lot of analysis in a beginner, intermediate, digestible way that might still teach something to people who are approaching high level.
I have to say, I love like your format with like the notepad on the side. It's so good. Like it makes it so much like easier to absorb. Obviously, like you can skip to points if you want. Like you can read through it. You don't miss anything. I think you have a really good format for, because it's educational, but it's also like entertaining. I think you have like that perfect balance right now where I can see plenty of people watching it who like aren't super interested in improving and just like they just like you and they just like hearing about the game. But also, if you do want to gain knowledge, yeah, there's a lot you can learn. So yeah, I think your format's really really good.
Thank you. I did it because when I watch other Tekken content and people are doing like no webcam or no like visual cue for me, I forget what they're talking about very quickly.
Sure.
And the information is good. Some of the greatest tutorials I've seen are just like dude talking to the practice mode screen, not moving, or dude doing like ADHD combos while he talks about something else, right? But I needed guidance to remember what we were talking about. So that's where my format came from, was just like, when I'm watching this, I get lost.
Hmm.
So, and I'm a yapper, I ramble, people might need help remembering, like, why are we talking about this in the first place, you know? So I thought that was an adaptation to my own inability to pay attention to things.
All right, so obviously in the past year or stuff, or past year since Tekken 8's been out, we've seen a huge influx of new Tekken players. It also seems like Tekken has gone a lot more mainstream these days through things like obviously the Sejam Slam. All these like big streamers who you've interacted with are getting into Tekken now, and like they're bringing a ton of new players into the series, which is really cool. First off, just like how did you first like get to know or like meet the offline TV people? How did that happen?
The first person I coached was BoxBox. I remember I was chilling, and then I got a DM from my friend group, and they're like, "Yo, BoxBox is streaming. Do your thing." And I was like, "What does that mean?" I pulled up to his stream, kind of sat around a bit, and tons of people were backseating. So I was kind of just like, if I'm in a backseat, I want to make sure I say something proper, right? I whiffed a few times because Asuka is so different in this game compared to what she was in Tekken 7, right? So I was saying some wrong things. I'm like, okay, I need to take this super seriously. I need to like open the practice mode, try and figure out things as he's going through it, and respond quickly because the game is moving so fast. That eventually led to me coaching him. I don't think it was even for the Sejam Slam at that point. It was just giving some direction. And I think the OTV streamers heard of me through coaching BoxBox. And once the Sejam Slam came together, that's when it was like meeting Lily and Toast and Skara and everybody. So it definitely started from coaching BoxBox the first time. And yeah, I feel very lucky that was an opportunity I got in the first place. I think that, I credit a lot of luck to being where I am. So I think that small things like that and trying to run with that as much as I could made a big difference.
Yeah, it's crazy because like it's so funny for me because I always like I watch the OfflineTV people, right? But I'm like I play fighting games, so they'll never be in my like industry. And then suddenly like they're all streaming Tekken every single day, and it's like what's going on? Like this is my like these are League of Legends streamers, you know? Like these are like more mainstream people. So yeah, I think it's really cool that you've like kind of had a huge part in like essentially it is bringing Tekken into the more mainstream audience. Like I feel like so many more people now know about Tekken than they ever did before, and same for other fighting games, right? It's starting to slowly, because we've been niche for so long. Like fighting games have always been like the most niche. Like you want to do it professionally, you make no money. You want to make content, has the least viewer. Like but seems like slowly now we're starting to move into that point where I don't know, maybe in a couple of years it could actually like be up there with some other games. I think that'd be really cool.
I hope so. Some of the best comments I've gotten are like, I haven't played Tekken since Tekken 3, and now I'm back because I like watching it. I haven't played Tekken since Tekken 5 on the PS3. Or sorry, the PS2. I was thinking of the port. I haven't played Tekken 5 since the PS2, and now I want to play again. Those are some of my favorite comments. And I think there was a loose announcement. I don't know how serious they were about it, but like the Olympic Games wants to do like an esports thing. And because they don't want like shooting in their things, fighting games became a natural thing. So I can't remember if they officially announced that it was like Tekken and Street Fighter and Fortnite, but I think they were alluding to that. At least there were talks about it. So yeah, who knows? Hopefully.
I wish it's just so cool seeing new people, like you said, old people. I get tons of comments like that all the time. Like it seems like Tekken 8 is really like the big one that brought so many people back. Maybe just because like they changed it so drastically. Maybe it's because of I don't know, like the graphics. It's like an actual modern Tekken game. But it's really cool. Okay.
Yeah, my pipe dream is that I can go to a bar or go to like a place where they show TV and there is an esport up there. Like that's my very far away pipe dream, especially with like the more recent esports winter things happening, right? But there was definitely a time where I wanted that to be a thing, and I think like long term, that is my hope, and that drives me a lot in like educating and entertaining. Is that I really believe in it. I think that, especially again, I think Tekken is one of the most watchable fighting games, and I don't see any reason why somebody who can understand football can't understand Tekken.
Yeah,
you know.
And it brings a whole new audience. Yeah, a lot of people have just like, there's so many people who've just written off sports completely, but like there's what you get from like being like, I get it now. This was a YouTube video I watched a while back. It's like watching fighting games made me understand sports fans, or watching esports. Like I get it now, like rooting for a team, the storylines. And I feel like, okay, a lot of people aren't interested in sports, but like you lose out on that. Like there's a lot of awesome things that come with that kind of experience, like following competition, the storylines and all that. So yeah, I think esports is awesome. Esports is really
even
cool.
Like the NA versus EU discourse happening right now. it's so like there are people who take it way too seriously, right? But
Mhm.
for us, it's so fun. Like we're friends with the EU people, and now we're talking the craziest shit. I have never seen us go that hard on each other before. Pause. But it's so funny. Like I'm like, these guys are really good at shit talking, and without the esport, we wouldn't really have that venue because Americans, we don't watch like soccer as much as like the Europeans do. We don't have like a team like that, but we have Tekken and we have our players. And people will go to bat for players in NA that they might not even be super tight with. But when it comes to the regional
Yeah.
rivalry, suddenly we are like we're the tightest dudes. Like we're there for each other. It's
Yo,
cool.
that Joka tweet was crazy. People are
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
so mad, but it's fun. Yeah, and I don't think anyone's taking it like too seriously. So
The people involved are not, which is the
mm.
cool part. I think there are the people on the outside who might be like really going to bat for their region, and I think it's important to recognize. Yeah, it is fun, but yeah, I don't know. It's cool. It's cool.
Okay, so earlier you said you played Melee, right?
Yeah.
Were you like a competitive Melee? Like, did you go to tournaments, or was it more of a casual thing, or
Yeah, I went to
what's like?
college in NorCal, and so there were a lot of locals. So
Mm.
I wasn't competing in Tekken at the time, but between League of Legends games, I would go hang out with the Smash Club. I remember it started my freshman year. I was playing in our dorm, and it was me. Like there was another guy who was also decent, and he was always mad because I kept beating him. And eventually, he found like the Smash Club and invited them over, and they cooked us. So I was like, okay, now I really want to get serious about this between League of Legends, of course. So then I started going to tournaments. I started hosting tournaments with the Smash Club. So that was kind of a big experience for me, TOing, experimenting with commentary, things like that. But yeah, I was competing pretty seriously. I didn't stream it or anything like that. It was just straight up like going to the locals and trying to get better.
All right, so this is gonna be a crazy one. Which do you think is like overall the harder fighting game? Because whenever
I,
people say like the hardest one, they say like, to me, I think that you can't even compare them because they're just so drastically different. But yeah, what are your thoughts there between
I
Melee
think
and
Melee's
Tekken?
harder.
Oh
I think
damn.
Melee's harder. Um, I think the decisions per like the APM is really high, but also like the decisions that you're
Mm.
doing are really high. When you're getting comboed in that game as the victim, you don't get to check out.
Use the
You have
DI,
to
right?
make
Yeah.
decisions. Well, yeah, you have to make decisions to either mix up how they continue the combo, or like for those who don't know how like directional influence works in that game, you uh can affect how your character flies once they get hit. So sometimes you want to angle yourself so that you can survive versus angle yourself really like what seems like you'll get yourself off the stage, but it ends the combo sooner.
Mhm.
And the interplay between how your opponent's doing their combo and how you are trying to whether either survive or escape the combo, survive a kill hit or escape the combo early is an active part of the game. So already that's a lot of decisions. Also, I feel like Melee scratched the itch of Tekken where things happen in a fluid 3D plane.
Mm.
Like Smash is a 2D game, right? But the micro movements possible and the movement cancels create this Tekken-like feeling where you're interacting in like what feels like pixels.
Mm.
Whereas like when I first played like Dragon Ball Fighters, I was caught off guard by how when you dashed, it was like a fixed distance. Or like even if you air dash, like yes, you have a lot of control, but it is like a fixed distance versus you can cancel it at any point in the animation.
Mhm.
So for those reasons, I think that Tekken and Melee felt very similar. Um, and what's interesting is both games are kind of games that you really have to just spam games in to get better.
Mhm.
Especially Melee back then, there wasn't really like a practice mode. They have tools now, but I thought Melee was way harder. You couldn't grind specific things unless you had a training partner or you like had two controllers and controlled one with your foot. Like you had to just play the game a lot. And then people are blowing up their hands because
Yeah.
it's so high APM. So I think Melee's harder, but I don't think that makes it inherently better or worse.
Mhm.
I just think I think it's a harder game with a lot more APM demand. People will complain how there's the same 5 top tiers. So like that's if you wanted to levy a criticism, like that's one of them. But yeah, I love Melee. I wish I could play it more. I'm horrible at that game.
Dude, Melee, watching Melee, it's like it's art. It really is. It's such
Yeah.
a cool game. Yeah, a lot of people who don't know, like people who just play normal traditional fighting games, like so you're used to like you get comboed and you sit there, right? And we wait for the combo to end, like you said. That doesn't happen in Smash, in Melee, but all the Smash games, right? That just doesn't happen. I think is my camera a little delayed? I can't tell.
It's good on my end.
Okay, I think it's fine. Sorry, but yeah, there's so much more that goes into Melee that people don't even have to think about when it comes to regular fighting games. Obviously, yeah, DI is like a huge thing. Like true combos just aren't really a thing in Melee. Like they exist, but it's not that you don't lab combos. You adapt on the fly, and like you said, the defender is adapting on the fly, but also the person doing the combo. You have to look at them. Okay, he's doing this. Let me switch to this. You're always thinking actively, and I think Tekken and Smash are unique in that they both have like something significant that other fighting games don't have. Tekken has the 3D movements. Smash has the jumping, I think, is like the biggest thing for Smash, because when you think about like jumping in Street Fighter, yeah, you can jump in Street Fighter, but when you press a jump, it's the same every time. You can't like delay your jump, really. You can't move while you're in the air. Once you jump, it's a set animation, right? In Smash, all like the little, like you said, pixels. Like you can jump a little bit, move a little bit back, jump. It makes the game so much more like there's a million different things that could happen in every Smash game. So yeah, I think
you could fast fall, you can like fall slowly, you can change when your attack comes out. Like Street Fighter has that too, where you can attack at different heights. But again, because you can change your velocity, you can land on a platform and then do a grounded attack off of that, or a quicker aerial. Like there's so many variations to that.
Every like individual movement, like if you touch your stick even like a little bit, there's like so many things that go into it. Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think Melee is the hardest fighting game just because there's so much that goes into it. But and technically as well, like holy, just to be able to, you need to learn how to L cancel just to play the game. Like you just can't use aerials until you learn how to L cancel.
L canceling is like the Korean backdash. It's like it's the barrier to entry. And I've had the same opinion of Korean backdash canceling and sidestepping as L canceling in Melee. Some people see it as like a tedious thing to learn just to get the barrier of entry. For me, it is a source of dopamine as a player to have trained a thing that I get to consistently use. Maybe I'm just a nerd and I like high APM things with my hands, but like for me, I think that that's really fun. In the same way that Tekken, in order to move, I get to cancel and do something really fast with my hands. To wave dash, I got to do these. There are other games that don't have that, and arguably that's the reason I don't play those games. So people have asked about removing that from Tekken and things like that, and for me, I don't want to, not to gatekeep people from playing it, but because it's fun for me personally, So I the reason I end up harping a lot on mechanics and these like kind of skill checks is just I like taking those tests and passing them. For me, that happens to be fun. And there's not a lot of games that I think offer that mechanically.
It's very rewarding. It's like a cool skill expression thing. Like pro Tekken, like pro Mishima players, like they can do an insanely fast wave dash or insanely fast backdash. They don't even think about it anymore. Like they just do it, right? And you look at it and you're like, holy shit, how is that even possible? But for them, it's just nothing. So yeah, I agree. Like once you get it, you implement it into your gameplay and it looks cool. It's satisfying to do. It's not like super challenging for you anymore, but like it's like leveling up. It's like a very cool way. I, as a person, not my character, I've leveled up and now I can do this thing that I thought was so cool. Yeah, I agree.
It's the difference too in like dribbling and basketball versus if you could run with the ball. It's a tedious thing. Does it really change the strategy of the game? No. But adding a mechanical skill check that people can skill express in is cool. I think it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like it. Okay, people really wanted me to ask you this. I'm sure you get this all the time. How's your progress in finding a main going?
Oh, yeah, it's rough. I feel closer. I think that Lily and Steve have turned out to be really good fits. I go through big frustration periods with both. And then people will like complain to me like, yeah, this character needs this buff, right? I'm like, no, it's because I feel like I, for better or worse, every time I lose on a character, I will gaslight myself into thinking it's my fault. And I think that's I think that's a good approach, I think, to learning fighting games to an extent. There's obviously a point where it becomes too much. But for that reason, I get frustrated with Lily and Steve in a lot of ways. I think Lily, especially launch Lily, was one of the most broken characters Tekken has ever seen. And playing a character that is that broken does not make me feel good, right? So that's one thing. It's also a new way of playing Tekken in the sense of that, like, I have to be comfortable driving the attack. In Tekken 7, I was playing a defensive counter hit poking sword character. So the most offensive interaction I had to do was, do I choose my homing mid counter hit safe launcher with weapons Or do I choose a little linear one with longer range that pokes, or do I throw my right? So like the offensive decisions were less.
Mhm.
Now when I play Lily, I have a lot of ways to mess up my offense, right? I choose a low at the wrong time. I choose a linear move at the wrong time. I choose to do my Hail Mary move and it doesn't work. So there's a lot of ways. There's a lot of ways to attack that I just didn't have to learn before that now I have to learn. And Steve is similar now, especially in Tekken 8. He can't really play straight up movement back one, 1-2-1, down forward 2, high coverage stuff.
Mhm.
He can't find a low parry, get you to the wall, and then mix you to death. He has to box, you know. And I'm not a boxer. I play video games. So in that way, I've had to adapt to the offensive Tekken 8 game. When it comes to finding a main specifically, it just feels like those two characters have done the best. I think I've liked characters who can have explosive plays on defense, like a Lily hop kick, a Lily Matterhorn, a sidestep 4, a counter hit forward 4.
Mhm.
Steve hitting a back 1 is dopamine. So those are the characters I'm leaning towards. I liked Clive on release, but the more I played him, the more I felt like I was getting worse at the game.
Mhm.
And and people ask, what does that mean? Things like I'll sidestep on a read, and whatever reason, the way Clive makes me feel and act and operate, I'll do like a 12 frame punish instead of a launch on a sidestep. Whereas if I was playing Lily, I'd do sidestep hop kick. Steve, I'll even do sidestep peekaboo down forward 2, like to launch. But Clive, something deactivates my brain, I'll just do the laziest punish possible. I made the analogy that Clive is like, like Wall-E, when they're in space, the humans are all riding chairs that do everything for them.
Yeah.
Clive is the chair. And so if I want to be like a top physical condition fighter who's sharp and punishing everything and like moving and paying attention, I can't pick Clive because he'll do everything for me. And then I'll get really lazy and I'll get worse. So Clive might be down the road, depending on how they change him, like a tournament pick or like a pocket pick for certain matchups.
Mhm.
But he's not a character I can grind every day because I can feel myself slowing down and losing my reflexes and losing my instincts and just not sharpening myself.
Do you think that's a thing in general for you with like the easier like top tiers in Tekken 8, or is it more like Clive specific? Like, have you
I
experimented with
wouldn't
most top tiers and seen like how it does for you?
Yeah, I wouldn't generalize it as a top tier thing. The
Mm.
same thing happened in Tekken 7, where to get better at playing Noctis, I played Kazumi, Steve, and Kazuya.
Mm.
Kazumi was you had to do a lot of work. She had a lot of OP
Oh my
moves, but
god, yeah.
especially when I was playing in season 4, you had to do a lot of work. Even if you get a whiff punish, it doesn't do 70% HP, right? um, on Steve, I had to learn to find the counter hit timings, or I just wouldn't get damage, right? On Kazuya, I had to learn to drive offense whether I would die or not. Like, make that decision, go.
Mm.
You can't hesitate on Kazuya. You have to make your choice, live or die. Those 3 characters made my Noctis better than grinding games on Noctis because of the way Noctis does a lot for you.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't categorize it as a top tier thing necessarily. It's an experience I've had in previous Tekkens. When it comes to Tekken 8, I've tried like Dragonov, I've tried like Reina, I've tried Yoshimitsu. I think I'd be a fire Yoshimitsu. But he does a similar thing where right now I want to see if I can develop that Tekken 8 skill of attacking. As much as people say Tekken 8 is random and a casino game, the same players are at the top.
Yeah.
It's Ulsan, it's Atif, it's Mulgold, it's Arslan Ash. Nii is getting there now, which is really cool to see. So I want to feel what they feel, do what they do. Even if I'm not going to be as good, imitating that style and seeing how far I can push myself to do it is my current point of interest. If I say get sponsored or feel like going to tournaments again,
Mhm.
I would 100% probably pick Yoshimitsu or Clive because it's not about being a better player at that point. It's about winning more.
Hmm.
And I think the top tiers like Yoshi and Clive would help me win more. But I also think it's not as simple as pick any top tier. Obviously, picking a top tier is good, but if you put me on Dragonov, I don't think it plays to my skill set very well. If you put me on Shaheen I think is a nasty character. I'm not a slide character player. I love Law. That's what I started Tekken on, but I'm not a good Law player. You have to be like unhinged and just going in over and over, right? And I'm just not good at that. So right now, Steve and Lily feel like a happy compromise where it plays to my skill set. I can still play aggressive, and yeah, I'm always exploring in the sense of how can I grow as a player within my understanding of what my strengths and weaknesses are.
Mm.
I'm in a build up my weaknesses phase right now. That could change 6 months down the road. I think the hardest part about picking a main is just how much investment it takes. I think people underestimate how truly, I think to get a Tekken main at a world class level, so not a pro level, a world class level,
Mhm.
takes at least 1 to 2 years minimum, right? I think to be comfortable with every situation, all the micro variances, having every matchup not, oh yeah, this is what I have to do, but your hands go as soon as you load into the match. Round 1 fight, you know what to do on like a guttural animalistic level. That takes a long time. That's why it's hard for me to pick a main, is because the commitment is so high. But I'm down to do it. It's just, it's hard to know.
That's why it's so crazy when you see like the pros just like switching characters just like that.
Yes.
Like some of these guys are able to play like 5, 6 characters. It's like, oh my God, how is that even possible? How do they, it's unreal to see.
Yeah. I think people really underestimate that, especially even if you get a character to God of Destruction level. You are not fighting necessarily at a world-class tournament level. So for these guys to decide, I guess I'm going to play Feng Wei and do it at a world-class level is crazy.
Yeah.
And I hate Feng Wei. I think he's carried. But for the world-class players to do it, that is very impressive, really.
It's so cool to see. And it's tough too, because I feel like, because of, like you said, how much investment it takes in a character in this game specifically, a lot of times people will want to switch, but they won't be able to, because there's like that time sunk fallacy. Like that's always a thing in fighting games. I've put so much time into this character, and even though I feel like I'm plateauing and I want to switch, a lot of people aren't able to take like that couple months or even year period where you're just doing worse to get better later, to pick a new character. Which is why I think it's really important for most players, like, experiment with characters. Don't get like stuck on just one. Like experimenting with characters is the best way, in my opinion, to rank up. You're going to naturally learn matchups. You're going to understand these characters better. It's like all the people in my chat, Brian's so brain dead. He's so easy. It's like, maybe like try playing him for a little bit and you'd understand. Like, or like Kazuya. I get people saying Kazuya is the most brain dead character in the game. And it's like, maybe that's true, but maybe try him for a bit and then you'll get a new perspective. Like it's so good to play other characters in all fighting games, really, but Tekken especially.
Yeah, I have 2 thoughts on that. On one hand, I completely agree that I pick up a new character and I start to understand why players do the things they do, right? So like, I understand now why Claudio players will get frustrated when it feels like their mix-up isn't hitting, right? It's because if they're always just doing down back 4-3 over and over again when you run up, that's not as scary. It's doing sidestep 4. Oh my God, like people will think it's seeable. But then I saw Claudio players doing sidestep back 1. That makes a big difference. And then when I started playing him, I understood more of like, well, why does back 1 not feel so OP? It's because I'm using it when they're already stand blocking versus when they're trying to move and interact with me. There are these nuances that you definitely can pick up playing a character. On the other hand, I think that when you're trying to deeply refine, there is a lot of merit to pushing your character more than you may currently think you can go. There are a lot of players who think that, like, for example, Reina needs more lows, right? Like that's a common talking point. And I think that if you push past the initial, my mids seem to do nothing, my lows seem so high risk, why does it feel like a player like Yagami can succeed with just Reina's Hell Sweep, down back 2, and sidestep 4, right? Why does he not seem to need more lows in order to perform at a world-class level? I think pushing your character, assuming you really do vibe with them, right? You really do enjoy them, and they fit your style, which can be hard to figure out. Assuming those things are in place, I think it's worth sometimes digging deeper, watching higher level players. Even like me, I am really bad at forcing myself to sit and watch Tekken players. I'd rather play the game. But I watched Numan over the weekend. It's completely like changing how I play right now. So I think watching higher level play, even if you don't necessarily know what to look for in every situation, pick like one thing, like, oh, I like that move he's using. I wonder like why he's doing that. Where is he using that? Now I'm doing over here over and over again as Steve. I don't really get why yet, but I saw him doing it a lot. I'm gonna try it and see where it works and where it doesn't. So I think there's an art to whether you're refining more or trying to empathize and see why a character struggles with certain things.
Yeah, and like you said, you get that perspective when you try a different character. Dude, the Reina players, they never stop. Like I swear to God, it's the new Jin mains of this game. They're just always no lows. She has no tracking.
Man, it's always the Mishimas.
Yeah. Oh my God, and I get people in my stream. Jin has no lows. It's like, excuse me, what world are we living in?
We're not playing the same game.
What world are we living in right now? Jesus. Yeah, but yeah, definitely like you said, there's both things. Like if you want to be a really strong Tekken player, there's always more to grow with your character. One of the beautiful things about Tekken is like your character is never solved. I don't think you can really solve a character in a game like this. Such extensive movesets. There's so much that can go into a match. There's always more to discover and optimize. But also, yeah, like try new characters, understand how they work, get a better understanding of that. I think that's how you really become a great Tekken player. Yeah.
Yeah, I think early like that. I love that point. Like a character, especially in season 1 of a brand new Tekken game,
Mhm.
is not solved at all. People think, oh my god, Brian is weak in this game. And like Knee is losing, Low High's losing. Like, well, Brian sucks in this game. Steve sucks in this game. What did we see in literally the last tournament?
Yeah.
We saw Brian players going crazy.
Kicking
Yes,
ass.
they were skillful, of course, but we also saw them using moves that Brian players weren't really abusing before. Knee's doing down back 1+2 with Brian because it's a safe mid like tracking string. We did not see that at all before. There's innovations. We see Newmon piloting a different version of Steve than any Steve main, at least that I've watched in Tekken 7. Steve was always 1-2-1, back 1, down forward 2, right? Newmon is doing over here. He's spinning at you and punching you, and then he's doing back 1 very minimally.
Yeah.
He like doesn't back 1 until he really makes it hit because you're tired of chasing him going over here, right? It's like we have a whole world trying to innovate on their characters, trying to see what works from before, trying to see what they need to do that's new. And I think it's a pretty naive thought as even me, like an NA player in God of Destruction. It's pretty naive of me to think I have my character figured out. It's time to ask for buff.
Mhm.
You know, like I am so and maybe it's a character flaw, but I'm just so averse to having that degree of confidence in my decision without enough data, without enough understanding of what other players, not just necessarily pros either, but like there are innovators in like blue ranks or purple or blue ranks or Tekken God ranks.
Yeah.
Some players I've never heard of are doing brand new stuff on Steve. I'm like, I'm stealing that. That's cool. So I think it's a consistent learning process.
There's always so much, which again is why we love Tekken and why we hate Tekken. Like when you run into like a Steve player who's using like a million, or like a Zafina player, 10 moves you've never seen before, and you lose and you get fucked and you're there complaining. Like it sucks, but also that's the beauty. Like you never know.
It felt so scrubby once, but it made total sense. As Zafina, I was fighting, did standing 3 in a stance, and then heat smashed me right away, and I was like, that's dumb, but it worked.
But
like,
it worked.
That's pretty good. I'll have to watch for that. Like,
and yeah, when it comes to competitive play, all that matters is what works. If one of these players wants to go to the highest level possible, and you see them do something like this is a scrub move, but it works. If it works, sometimes it'll beat pros, and you see that happen a lot of times in Tekken 7, especially. Like you'd see a character who we wrote the character off. Like remember, like didn't everyone think Katarina was like garbage for like the vast majority of the game? And then was it Arslan who started playing her? And then suddenly we start seeing more characters like start to come out.
I don't remember the specific history of Katarina, but I know that Genghis Dawn was doing really well, and I think it was he plays Shaheen now, and I think is the manager for Falcons. Gerlanda, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Gerlanda was playing Katarina, and they were performing really well. Also, they kept buffing her. The big problem is if a character is written off, they immediately start buffing them. And it's like, we want to see more of this character. And if you don't do that carefully, it can get so out of hand.
It's like the power creep.
I thought Noctis was the perfect beginner character when he first came out. He had like the spear and the sword, like the down back 1+2, they had to go, right? But for high level players, they weren't an issue. But he let people kind of feel some Tekken stuff with a bit of training wheels. His whiff punish went really far. He had really good like normal pokes. But he wasn't murdering you with egregiously unfair stuff. But because he was underrepresented and because people weren't performing with him, they buffed him to the point that I could beat Arslan Ash with him. So, like I really think buffs need to be very, very careful. And we alluded to it in the beginning, but when it comes to season 2, that's what I'm the most scared of, is buffing something without enough consideration for everything that it affects. And they said 1,500 changes. That scares me. How can you be that precise with that many changes? I don't remember the past 10 things I ate. What do you mean 1,500 changes?
Jesus.
That is serious.
We could be playing a completely new game. Part of me is like, when they say 1,500 changes, obviously it doesn't mean 1,500 individual buffs and nerfs. That could mean a lot of things, but what is it, 10 days? And then we're there, 11 days?
I bet a lot of them are going to be chip damage number changes. Right, I imagine a big number of those is going to go to that. So I can't give you an actual number of what I think it actually will be, but I have to imagine it's inflated by the chip damage numbers adjustment.
We could be playing Tekken 9.
That's true.
Everything's so different.
I even say that it feels like when they did the defense patch and you could sidestep heat bursts,
Mm,
and I think they took away tracking throws,
yeah.
that felt like a jump from 8.0 to Tekken 8.1 or Tekken
Yeah.
8.2, right? Like that was a significant change. And season 2 is going to be crazier.
Well, but they've said what the power crush heat engagers are going to be gone. Chip damage is nerfed. The sidestepping from a crouch, right? You can
Oh my,
sidestep.
that is a brand new Tekken game. That is a brand no, like that is so crazy to me. I don't like, not just defensively, how does it affect like stance cancels, right? Like
Yeah.
Lily's crouch dash, Dragunov's crouch dash, you cancel by pressing up because it's a sidestep to the background,
Mhm.
and you cannot sidestep to the foreground while you're crouching.
Yeah.
Can Lily now do back one and step either way? That's gonna be crazy. Can Nina Hayashida step either way? That's gonna be insane.
Everything changes. Every single move that puts you into crouch now, it's just completely different now. All your mix-ups are going to be different. What your defensive options, Mishimas aren't going to be like fucked by like which side they get now for like stepping left. Like it's going to be so different.
And one of my concerns is that to address that, they might just give some more tracking. I'm really concerned that
Oh no.
because Mishimas will have like forward 4 and now you can step a certain way, they'll give them some option that is now suddenly a quick homing thing, or like pseudo homing, right? Because it's probably not officially homing.
Mm-hmm.
There was an art, and yes, people will often push back against me on this, that it was dumb that it was player side dependent.
Mm-hmm.
But especially offline, there was an art in putting your opponent in force crouch and then controlling their options after by limiting their options and playing different mind games. And it was dumb online because you couldn't tell which side you were on. But at a high level where it was actually really relevant, I think, we got to the point where when we were training, we would ask, are you going to pick player 1 or player 2? And then we would train as if it were offline, right? To get that parity. This is the direction they've chosen to go. So I'm curious. I can't say it's going to be better or worse. It'll certainly be more clear, I think, for the beginner and newer audiences, which I think is cool. I'm a big fan of making things more welcoming. This feels perfectly on the edge of I can't tell if I like it or not. We'll have to see, right? Because it could be terrible. They could end up buffing things to make it to compensate for it, or it could be really good, and they could find an elegant way to handle this mobility. So that's an exciting change.
Oh, it's crazy.
We're teetering.
It's first time ever Tekken has gotten that. I just everything could change. So and like you
playing
said,
an old game will feel so different. It'll feel so different.
Dude, how are we gonna go back? We'll never be able to go back. It won't be the same anymore.
Yeah.
But they've done, obviously, like you said, the power crush thing was, or not the power crush, the heat burst, being able to sidestep, that was huge. Yeah. Like, I mean, I like that they're making these changes because a lot of these, like, to me, it's a no-brainer, right? Like, homing throws needed to go. That wasn't intuitive. That was just dumb. That was just dumb. Like, who wanted that? Like that,
he was giant swinging me when I was trying to sidestep, bro.
Like there was literally the only counterplay to like you could just spam heat burst, like perfect god get off me tool. No, like I think heat bursts are actually really cool right now. Like a lot of people are opting like to save them for combos or save them for like very specific cases rather than just someone's on me, pop it, and you don't have to worry because now if someone reads you and they sidestep, you're gonna die. I think that was a really good change overall.
The balance, the fair heat bursts that are really steppable, I actually agree. Especially we saw it in Korea versus Pakistan. Tons of Koreans were reading Arslan Ash's heat burst timing, stepping it and murdering him for it. It felt almost like maybe not the exact same, but it felt like tagging poorly in Tekken Tag 2. Where if you read that, you would blow them up for it. And if you didn't read it, they would actually, some people would tag in and do like a backswing blow. Like there were lots of mini mind games on that. Heat burst is a bit more tuned in favor of the attacker for sure. But the fact that you can die for a bad heat burst, I think is good. I die for my heat burst all the time.
Yeah.
I'm terrible at using it.
That's the mark of like when I lock in and ranked. Like when they start punishing my like brain dead just heat bursts like flowcharts, I'm like, okay,
my fault.
now I'm focusing. Do you think overall, I'm sure you do, but like do you think heat smashes, they need to like pick a direction, just be like, no heat smashes have homing? Or do you like that like some of them have homing and some of them don't, and some of them kind of home? Sometimes Jin's kick will hit you when you're on the other side of the stage.
So if we're talking about tracking, I think the first hit is where the decision needs to be made. Is this one of those heat smashes like Steve's, where it's basically his homing down forward 2 again? Once you have evaded it, realignment, I think, should not happen. I think we can. Everybody doesn't like that. Like Dragunov whiffs the first one, he keeps going and he runs away from you, and he can hit you again. That's dumb. I think everybody is pretty much in agreement with that, and I am too. I think that if the first hit is dodged, there's no reason for the rest of it to keep going.
Yeah. So, you know what's so weird though? Like in any other fighting game, you miss the first hit, the animation doesn't continue. Why? Why? You're right. Like he just keeps going and he's at the other side of the stage. Why is that a thing? It's very odd that they went with that direction.
I'm not joking when I say for probably the first 6 months of Tekken 8, if I fought a Law and he whiffed Heat Smash, I would get hit by the nunchuck after.
Does that launch like on normal hit? I've gotten like counter hit launched by that nunchuck sometimes. Like I think that happened yesterday. Yeah.
I don't remember because I would always roll my eyes every time it hit me. Like, I got hit again. It's just that I was running in or whip punching. I don't know, but it's a hilarious design choice. I think I'm loosely okay with the multiple hits if the counterplay is reasonable, right? So it's like there was a time where Dragunov literally got so far away you couldn't do anything. I think they adjusted it a bit so it's a bit easier. I think having the tracking reduced, just basically making it so that they can keep going, they can do whatever they want as long as I get my punish, right? In a reasonable way. That's kind of how I feel, because I like the flavor. Again, against like too much homogenization, I like the flavor of characters doing slightly different things. That Law thing is still funny to me, even though it's dumb. But as long as their counterplay is reasonable, I'm okay with characters having that little spice. You know, I think it's fun.
Okay, well, we covered a lot of stuff. I wanted to ask you. So I saw that you were playing. You played Street Fighter, right, for the Sejam Slam, and you've been playing that. What's it been like playing like Street Fighter and like other fighting games? Like, do you think a lot transfers like from Tekken, or do you have to like completely change your mindset going into that?
It was important. So I had tried Street Fighter maybe twice since playing Tekken 7. And it was Street Fighter 5 and then like a really old one. And I remember trying to Korean backdash and it not working. So like I think at a base level, it's very important to treat the games as different. Going in with the same base assumptions is a really dangerous way to go. And that one of the reasons that I play on leverless in Street Fighter is because my hands are making assumptions about how the game works. Korean backdashing, things like that, right? So I wanted a different peripheral for one. And then once a friend framed it to me as you anti-air the jump-ins, throws are unreactable, you have to prediction throw, and then crouch block is the default. I think those were the three base assumptions that helped me transition faster to Street Fighter, because then it became, oh, okay, what are my throw breaks, right? Like, what are my make sure I don't take damage for free? It's anti-airing the jump-ins and reacting to DI, right? Those two things were for me labbing like the different throw breaks in Tekken and labbing my basic punishes. And then a different friend told me for like my base offense is you need a jab like light confirm, and then you need like a big cash out combo, like crouching medium kick drive rush. So when I was first learning Street Fighter, I placed like rookie 1. I literally placed a bottom rank. And then I got to like, I think gold in a week by doing those things: anti-air, DI reaction, light confirm, crouching medium kick, drive rush. And I was Cammy, so I'd like dive kick once in a while, right? I think going to a new game, it's important to let go of your assumptions from a previous game, treat the game as new, and then the lessons that carry over will be surprising, right? So one of the things that I think I had the advantage of in being a Tekken player was I was really good at counter hitting people's timing. So I would like move back and forth, feel like the rhythm of the fight, and I would just put out a counter poke and it would usually hit. Or I could walk at somebody and crouching medium kick drive rush them because I knew they would just want to walk back and create space.
Right.
So like those tiny things though, I think don't become evident unless you let yourself treat the game as brand new first and then be surprised by what lessons carry over, rather than being like, I know this works in Tekken, this should work in Street Fighter. Like that's not really, that's kind of a big assumption to make, right? I know people who like play games like that. They go to a new game. I have a friend who loves Dark Souls, and he'll go to a new game and be like, well, in Dark Souls it's like this. I'm like, bro, it's a different game. Like, we're playing a different game, man. So I think it's important to approach it with a completely open mind, and then the lessons will be more profound and more exciting as you do it.
Yeah, and who like so you will notice some stuff that like, oh, okay, well maybe I already understand spacing a little bit better because I played other fighting games. Like there's definitely some stuff that transfers over. You know, it's been weird. I've been playing Street Fighter 6 a lot recently, and so one of my friends, he's really into Street Fighter, and I'm really into Tekken. So we did kind of like a swap, like learn each other's
Oh yeah.
games, see how it goes, and it's been so interesting. One of the biggest things that came up were like the like canceling moves. So for me in Tekken, like the window to cancel
Yeah.
moves into each other, he's like, okay, well you wait till it hits, and then after you press the next button, like you wait till the punch has connected, and then right there. And in Tekken, I just mash that shit, dude.
You
like
preload, yeah,
yeah,
you're
in
straight,
combos,
yeah.
you're just mashing that shit. So it's been really interesting to see how things are different over there. And also, yeah, everything's so fast. Everything is so
Yeah.
fast in Street Fighter. It's like when someone runs up to you and it's like they'll do like the block strings, right? Like jab, jab, crouch jab, light kick, Hadouken or whatever. It's like, how are people reacting to this? I'm still struggling to
Yeah.
react to jab. I struggle to react to grab sometimes in Tekken. And in Street
Yeah.
Fighter, it's like, I guess, well, you really just don't half the time.
It's time to
usually
guess.
it's time to
Do you-
guess.
Who do you play?
I played Terry.
Okay, Terry, yeah. I don't know enough about Terry, but I was also surprised how in Street Fighter people are doing things faster than they do in Tekken, whether it's the combo inputs themselves, like buffering super or things like that. It gave me more faith in my Tekken ability to get faster, right?
Yeah.
Like, not just seeing people do it in Street Fighter, but learning to do it myself.
Mhm.
I was like, well, if I can do it this fast in Street Fighter, what's stopping me from doing it in Tekken? You know, the cross training was really cool. And again, it came from a position of let's see what carries over rather than expecting certain things to carry over. I think that made a big difference.
Sure. Do you have any interest in like doing other fighting game content in the future, or do you want to like keep it kind of on Tekken, or are you open, or yeah, where are you at on that?
I would like to have more variety in general.
Mhm.
There are a few complications with that. One, I feel like my Tekken platform is kind of an educational one. I don't have the knowledge in Street Fighter to be educational
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
Right? That's one thing. The other thing is, in line with being a competitor at heart, I crave that feeling of expertise. Not in that I'm better than you or anything like that, but in like my movements are clean, my punishments are clean, my combos are cool and like well adjusted for the stage position. Those small optimizations, I love the feeling of being on top of my game. Like
Mhm.
being in like the equivalent of like peak physical fitness. It feels good to just move smoothly and in general just be faster,
Yeah.
more active human. So that's why it's hard to play other games. It's because now I'm ass at 2 games instead of like being like moderately decent at one and then like ass at a new one. So that's the conflict I think with doing different content. Now I do play other games, right? Like I dabble in Melee, I dabble in Street Fighter. My current other non-Tekken game is like Fortnite build mode for the same reasons. I like the drilling, I like the movement, the dopamine reward of being able to build and edit cleanly.
Mhm.
So, and I think as much as I have been before a solo Tekken player, I do think there's value in having a leisure game or having a secondary sweaty game that
Yeah.
allows you to, if you're not taking a full break, at least distract yourself and kind of cleanse the mental instead of booting into the same practice mode situation every time, the same ranked situation every time, right? I think that matters a lot.
Yeah, kind of what you said about like playing multiple fighting games. Like, yeah, there's so much to think about, and then you go to another one, and it's like, oh my god. That's why it's so impressive to me when I see people who compete in multiple games. Like, obviously,
Yeah.
like Sonic Fox does it. Like, Leffen wins Evo in Melee and Guilty Gear. It's
Nah,
like
bro.
two completely opposite, like Melee and an anime fighter. Like, I don't know. You can't really get much further than that when it comes to two fighting games. It's just, I don't know how they do it. Go, they're gods.
Yeah, that it's kind of what you were saying with like the ability of like say like Arslan Ash or Nee to pick up other Tekken characters.
Yeah.
They're just built differently. That is so cool to me too.
God, I'd love to be that guy one day, but I'm not built for it. You need to have, like, be born with like insane talent and also be like the hardest working person on the planet to pull that
Yeah.
shit off. Like you need
Yeah.
everything going for you. But damn. Okay. I have like one more that I wanted to get to. This is a very simple
Sure.
one. Which characters do you want to see back? Like, which characters are you most interested in seeing back in season 2 and beyond, I guess?
This is so hard because the characters that I think belong in Tekken, I hate fighting against, right? So for me, since I
Mhm.
started in Tekken 3, I don't think a Tekken game is a Tekken game without Julia,
Oh,
Nina and Anna,
God. Yeah.
and Lei Wulong. I hate fighting all of those characters. I hate fighting Brian, but I think Brian belongs in the game. I think Tekken needs a Muay Thai fighter. The Muay Thai fighters are built to counter me, I swear. Because no matter what Tekken game they're in, they make you guess, right? Josie does down forward forward into a true guess stance. Rock, paper, scissors, go now. One of us is gonna die. And I'm really bad against that style.
Mhm.
But I think Tekken is not a Tekken game without a Muay Thai fighter. You know?
Mm.
Whether it's Bruce, Josie, or Fakaram, honestly, for me, I would like it to be Josie. But
Oh no, I can't believe you said that.
I think they'll bring Fakaram back. I think they'll bring him back just because he's the newest one. There was development investment in him. Or they'll bring Bruce by popular demand. But yeah, that's my personal take. I think Tekken needs those as much as I hate fighting against them.
Okay.
Guest characters, I'm not. Again, I'm very Tekken pilled. Aside from like playing a lot of Noctis and really enjoying Noctis and liking Final Fantasy, I feel like just more Tekken characters should come back. There's not a guest character I can think of that we really want. Like people say Kiryu, which I think would be cool. But I know with Virtua Fighter 6 on the horizon, the odds of that are probably low. I thought that they should bring Ichiban Kasuga from Like a Dragon, and have him fight like Negan because he had a bat. You know, like that'd be cool. Cool little crossover. So, but aside from that, yeah, I would love to see more Tekken characters come back, except Roger. I hate fighting Roger. I did not like fighting Roger and Alex at all. I don't like Ganryu, but I could see the appeal of having a sumo fighter. It's hard as someone who really enjoys the casual aesthetic of Tekken. I don't like fighting any of those characters. So who knows? Oh, Miguel. I think Miguel's a big one.
He'll definitely come back. Yeah.
Not just in play style, like his fighting style was so unique. The players that played him expressed a lot of skill, like Sephi Black, glaciating, right? Like Miguel was really cool. Again, and I hate fighting against him, but I think that there's a lot of returning Tekken characters I'd like to see before I see more guest characters. And luckily, they've said that that's how they feel too. But yeah, and then I bet with the original Tekken character, I have a strong hunch it'll be a Pakistani character. I have a very strong hunch that would be the kid.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that's
for sure.
pure speculation. I have no idea.
So you don't want to see Yasuo come into Tekken?
Yeah. Oh my god, that would be
all the weebs run in.
If they picked a league character, I don't even know where to begin. But no, Yasuo, I think people would be pretty pissed off. People are pissed off about him in League, you know?
You know, it's crazy though with 2xKO now, like it could happen. One of these days you could actually see, or like a Street Fighter character in 2xKO. Like maybe they're gonna do guest characters. Have you experimented with 2xKO at all?
I played the beta. It was really hard. I'm really bad at tag fighters, and the like. I remember I was doing a combo for like 6 hours. They made it hard, which I think is good. I like that it's kind of very FGC pilled in that way. It's a hard game. Wow, I was losing nonstop. They put me in a tournament with like Leffen and Super Noon, and I was like, why am I here? I'm the kid here to be shoved in the locker. That was crazy. Yeah, I played the game a lot. I think that other fighting games would need League more than League needs them. Yeah. In terms of guest characters, right? So I think that would be the challenge. I think that Riot benefits so much from farming their own IP that they have no need for. But you know that could change depending on how the company stuff goes and how the game picks up traction. Because the game is hard, I can imagine it actually being a big turnoff for noobs. In the same way that Tekken Tag 2, learning 2 characters was ridiculous. Learning 1 Tekken character is insane. Learning 2 and fighting against 2, that was insane. So I could see it being a big turnoff for people. And I think that's why I have like the duo queue mode. I kind of wrote off that mode when I was playing the beta. And then on the last 2 days, I played with Sajam, and it ended up being extremely fun. Like the reduction of the mental stack to like, okay, now I will tag, now I will fight, now I'll look for the time to tag out, and then I can kind of sit and process move lists and things like that. It was an elegant solution. So I'm really excited for 2xKO, and I'm not sure how I'll do content on that. Again, with the idea of expertise and stuff like that, but I'm excited for the game.
It's so weird because I always used to talk about 2X. So obviously Riot Games is huge, right? Like they're a behemoth. So it was always like, if Riot Games makes a fighting game, it's going to be the biggest thing ever. Like it's going to sweep the rest of the FGC off. And I still kind of have faith in that, although it's been a little bit, I feel like their reception has been less than they expected. Like if you look at like the people like streaming it when the beta was out and like YouTube videos, it's kind of like not doing as well as I thought it would, but I wonder if that's just because like obviously they're not like promoting it nearly as hard, or I don't know, maybe it is like just too difficult for like the casual League players. Do you still think it'll be like huge and like the biggest fighting game like by a lot?
I think Riot seizes the majority like stake in the community that they jump into, right? So
Sure.
like Valorant isn't necessarily grabbing fighting game players
Hmm.
in the same way that 2XKO is probably not going to grab shooting game players.
Right.
So it's picking from a niche pie already.
Hmm.
Um, but I also think that Tekken 8 was doing really well at that time. So there was less of a like, oh, we have no games to play. What do we do? Like, remember when Tekken 7 came out and like Street Fighter 5 was doing so bad, so people just went to Tekken 7.
Sure.
There wasn't that effect, I think, for the 2XKO, and it was a closed beta, I think, or closed alpha. So it was like, it was even harder for the regular casual audience to get into. But I imagine when they do an open beta, that might change. I think that right now it's so hard to get heavily invested in the content, having like no clear timeline for release, having no pipeline for like an open beta, things like that. I think because of that, people are less likely to be like, yeah, what's happening? They'll just be like, well, I can't play anyways, so why do I care? You know?
Yeah, and there's been like a lot of really interesting stuff with 2XKO. Like, I don't know if you heard, they said they're doing dedicated servers. Like, it's going to be like
Yeah.
the first, and for all of our life, it's been like, oh, it's impossible. Fighting games have to be peer to peer. And they're like, no, we're going to have a server. If you're laggy, that's on you. Get fucked. The other person will just kick your ass. Like, there's a lot of really promising stuff. And it seems like Riot's like actually like really listening to the community. So yeah, I definitely think
Yeah.
there's potential. I'm in the same boat as you though. It's so hard. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do it. It's too fast. Like, someone jumps on me and they'll do like 100 attacks. It's like, sorry, what is going on?
That's what I mean. I'm like, I can't wait. Like, the difficult the hardness, the difficulty of it excites me in that, again, I'm excited to see how it pushes me as a fighting game player.
Mhm.
You know, as someone who felt too slow to even play Street Fighter, I wonder what playing that game is going to do to me playing Tekken.
Yeah.
Like because your brain, like, again, like, I can't play Clive because it slows me down and makes me make like dumber decisions.
Mhm.
There are ways you can put yourself in an environment that speeds you up, right? So I wonder if playing 2XKO will make my Tekken like better, or maybe it won't. I have no idea.
It'll be very interesting, especially like for the FGC. Like, everyone's kind of like seeing, will this be the one? Maybe we'll go mainstream after this. Maybe we'll get like, because obviously Riot Game has money. You know, like the LCS is so huge. Maybe there'll be, because even now, I was talking about this a little bit a couple days ago with one of my friends, but the Capcom Cup, right? $1 million for first place. That is like,
Oh my God.
holy, what world are we living in now? Maybe that'll become more mainstream. You saw what it was like, the 14-year-old kid who got 100K for second place.
Yeah.
Oh my God. But
They
it's
said like something like that prize split is like designed to cause psychological trauma, and we're lucky that a 15-year-old got it because he doesn't really understand that he lost a $900,000 money match, probably. Like,
Jesus. Yeah, but
it's like if he were 36, like that would hit very differently.
but yeah, like I said earlier, it's really cool to see like the FGC growing. We're really as big as we've ever been right now, and I'm praying. It's like it's all of our dream for like this to be mainstream. $1 million prize pots. Like, people are super serious about competing. People are making a living doing content and doing like everyone wants that, right? So yeah, really hoping it keeps going in that direction. Yeah.
Yeah, I also hope, I think that yeah, like you said earlier on, there's a lot riding on season 2.
Mhm.
I hope that the developers are able to make changes that kind of restore good faith in what they're doing. Tekken 8 has taken L after L, like I think like since what, post Evo,
Mhm.
around like again Maji Temple release. So I think that we are due for some wins, and I would like to see the development team take those steps, because it's just more fun for everybody. I think people have said that I have like toxic positivity about Tekken. It's self-serving, because when I'm in a stream and I'm learning the game and I'm already getting frustrated at my own mistakes, the last thing I want to see is, hey, can you address this scandal? And I'm like, I don't want to talk about that. I want to get better at the game. Like, how is
Yeah.
this helping me beat the dude on my screen, you know? And if the game is doing well, if people are generally more positive, it's just more fun to stream it. It's more fun to make
Mhm.
videos. It's more fun. So, more fun to make content.
Mhm.
So that's why I'm hoping they do well. It's really just because it makes my day to day a lot more enjoyable. Right? It's very self-serving that I hope they do well.
Yeah, well, even in general though, like with your content style, like you said, toxic positivity. Like, I really like appreciate that you're always trying to like look at the bright side. You're not like dooming all the time. You see, they give patch notes and there's like 1 million people on Twitter. Oh, game's ruined. Go review bomb. Bring us back to Tekken 7. Like, there's a lot of negativity in the community. I think it's cool to
Yeah.
see that you try and push the positivity.
It's important too, because I think if you have someone who's never touched a Tekken game in their life, right? and they take a peek into like, I wonder what Tekken community is like. If you were to go to Reddit or Twitter,
Oh my
they're like,
God.
I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. The Tekken community seems crazy. And if you are in, say, a local community or a Discord community that's playing Tekken, you have direct friends that play it, it's one of the most fun, rewarding experiences possible. So I think that the stuff I try to share about the game is just the excitement that I share with my friends when we're learning about the game. It's the stuff that got me into the series in the first place. And even though there are a lot of things to hate about Tekken 8, to be really discouraged about, to doom about, there's also a lot of fun to be had.
Yeah.
Even if it's not the same exact form of fun we've had in the past Tekkens, right? That's genuinely how I feel about it. Like, I'm having fun even when I'm getting frustrated that I'm missing another whiff punish, another sidestep. You know, I'm getting scrubbed out. It happens.
Yeah, it's just like feeding yourself constantly with negativity. Like, what does that serve? Like, you're just gonna make yourself hate the game. You're just gonna make other people more negative. Like, if you think about it positively, like, does the game have issues? Absolutely. No one would come on here and say Tekken 8 doesn't have issues. We've talked about that in depth. Tons of issues, right? But like, you can look on the bright side. The community is bigger than it's ever been before. Visually, this is the best looking Tekken game we've ever gotten. Like, it's still phenomenal how good this game looks. Like, I'll just be playing it. I'm like, this is look at Tekken 7. Oh my God, it's like night and day looking at them, right? Like, and the characters are all really cool. Like, the gameplay is there. It's fun. Like, focus on the positive. Doesn't mean don't critique it, but like, people can get in their own head, I think, with the negativity. So I think it's really important to try and avoid that, you know.
I agree, yeah.
All right, well, we've been going for an hour and 45 minutes. It flies by with these. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's a great time.
Yeah, it's been really awesome getting to talk to you, man. I know people are really going to enjoy this one. So thanks a lot for coming on. I'm sure everyone watching knows exactly who you are, but anything you want to plug? Where can people find you?
I guess the thing I'll plug is my second channel. So PhiDX Unhinged is where we capture more like stream moments and funny clips. It's not always Tekken, sometimes other games too. If I go on a rant or something, we talk about it there. I think it's fun because people have said, like, watching like my tournament commentary, like, oh, he's so cringe, he's trying to be hyped, like he's trying to be funny streamer guy. And then like someone replied like, no, you don't get it. The educational fee is the fake one. This is where you actually see. And on the Unhinged channel, well, it's unhinged, so it speaks for itself. I'll plug that one. So I think it's just PhiDX at PhiDX Unhinged on YouTube.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll link it and all your other stuff in the description. But yeah, thanks again for coming on, man. It was awesome getting to talk to you.
Thank you. It was a great time. I appreciate being on.